Most sequels try to recreate what made the original movie great. Terminator 2 looked at the original and said, "Yeah, we're going bigger. Bigger action, bigger effects, bigger emotional stakes, and somehow, a better Terminator." James Cameron took a terrifying villain from the first movie, turned him into the hero, introduced one of the most iconic villains in movie history, and created a sequel that, more than 3 decades later, still makes modern action movies look lazy. But here's the question. Is Terminator 2 actually as perfect as everyone remembers? Because I do have a few problems with this movie. And there's one thing T2 does better than almost every blockbuster being made today. We'll get to that. What's up, everyone? Today we're going back to 1991 and reviewing one of the biggest action movies ever made, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger returns as the T-800, Linda Hamilton is back as Sarah Connor, Edward Furlong plays John Connor, and Robert Patrick shows up as the T-1000, a villain who barely has to say anything to be absolutely terrifying. Now, I love the original Terminator. It's darker, it's basically a horror movie disguised as science fiction. But Terminator 2? This is where James Cameron took the concept and turned it into a full-blown blockbuster. And the crazy part? The explosions aren't even the best thing about it. The perfect sequel setup. The movie wastes almost no time reminding us what's at stake. Judgment Day is coming. Skynet will become self-aware. Humanity is basically headed toward extinction. And John Connor is the key to humanity's survival. So naturally, another Terminator gets sent back through time to kill him. We've seen this before. Except Cameron pulls off one of the smartest sequel tricks ever. When Arnold first appears, the movie intentionally makes you think he's the bad guy again. Then the hallway scene happens. John is trapped between the T-800 and the T-1000. Arnold pulls out the shotgun and shoots the other Terminator. Boom. Everything changes. And somehow the new Terminator is even scarier than Arnold was in the original. The T-1000 is still incredible. Robert Patrick's T-1000 is one of my favorite movie villains because he's not complicated. He's not giving 10-minute speeches about his master plan. He doesn't need to. He's a machine. He has one job: kill John Connor. That's it. And Robert Patrick plays him with this cold, almost emotionless calm. Then you've got the liquid metal effects. Remember, this movie came out in 1991, and somehow a lot of these effects still look good today. Not everything is flawless, obviously. There are moments where you can see the age of the CGI, but Cameron understood something incredibly important. CGI should support practical filmmaking, not replace it. Real vehicles, real stunt work, real explosions, real locations. Then CGI comes in when the filmmakers need something impossible. That's why the movie still feels physical. You feel the weight of everything, especially that truck chase. When that truck comes flying off the bridge, come on, that is an action movie. Sarah Connor might be the best character. But here's where Terminator 2 gets interesting, because Sarah Connor is almost unrecognizable compared with the woman from the first movie. The terrified waitress is gone. This Sarah Connor is ripped, paranoid, angry, and completely obsessed with stopping Judgment Day. Linda Hamilton is phenomenal. But the movie doesn't simply turn Sarah into an unstoppable action hero. She's damaged. She spent years knowing something terrible is coming while everyone around her thinks she's insane. And eventually, that fear starts turning her into the exact thing she's fighting against. When Sarah goes after Miles Dyson, she's basically becoming a Terminator herself. She has identified a target. She's decided he has to die. And nothing else matters. Until she looks at his family. Then she can't do it. That's the movie reminding us of the difference between humans and machines. We can choose. And that idea becomes even more important with Arnold. The heart of the movie. The relationship between John Connor and the T-800 shouldn't work as well as it does. But it does. John starts teaching him how humans talk, how humans behave, why you can't just go around killing people. Hasta la vista, baby. It's funny, it's entertaining. But underneath all of that, something else is happening. John is basically teaching a machine what it means to be human. And because John doesn't really have a father, the Terminator slowly starts filling that role. Sarah even recognizes it. A machine becomes the most dependable father figure John has ever had. That's such a strange idea, and somehow Cameron makes it genuinely emotional. But here's where the movie gives us hope. Maybe they can actually change the future. Maybe Judgment Day doesn't have to happen. Sarah, John, the T-800, and Miles Dyson decide to destroy Cyberdyne's research. They're going to erase everything connected to Skynet. And for a moment, it feels like they've won. Dyson sacrifices himself. Cyberdyne gets destroyed. The research is gone. Judgment Day might actually be prevented. We're done, right? Nope, because the T-1000 is still coming. And what follows is basically one giant reminder that this thing will not stop. The helicopter chase, the tanker, the steel mill, the T-800 getting absolutely destroyed. And this is where I have to give Robert Patrick credit again. He makes the T-1000 feel almost unbeatable. Every time you think they've escaped, he comes back. What doesn't work? Now, is Terminator 2 perfect? Not quite. It's long. The theatrical version moves pretty well, but some versions of the movie can definitely start feeling their runtime. And Edward Furlong's John Connor can occasionally be a little annoying. Some of that early 90s kid dialogue has aged, let's say, interestingly. There are also moments where the movie isn't quite as dark or suspenseful as the original. The first Terminator feels like you're trapped in a nightmare. T2 feels more like a giant Hollywood action movie. Personally, I think both approaches work. But if you prefer the horror atmosphere of the original, you might still rank the first movie higher. Because once T2 reaches that final act, I have almost nothing to complain about. The steel mill sequence is the movie firing on every cylinder. The T-1000 is damaged. Arnold is barely functioning. John and Sarah are desperately trying to survive. And finally, the T-1000 falls into the molten steel. It's over. The monster is dead. Our heroes won. Except there's still one final problem. The T-800 realizes that the chip inside his own head is also connected to Skynet's technology. Which means he has to go too. And suddenly, this giant action movie about killer robots becomes surprisingly heartbreaking. John begs him not to go, and Arnold says, "I know now why you cry." That's the moment. That's the entire movie. A machine that began the franchise as an emotionless killer has learned enough about humanity to understand grief, and then sacrifices himself to save humanity. Sarah lowers him into the steel. John is crying. And then Arnold gives him that final thumbs up. Come on, if that doesn't get you even a little bit, check your CPU, because you might be a Terminator. Terminator 2, Judgment Day isn't great because it has groundbreaking CGI. It isn't great because Arnold Schwarzenegger looks cool riding a motorcycle. And it isn't great because things explode every 5 minutes. Okay, those things definitely help. But T2 lasts because underneath all the spectacle is a surprisingly human story about choice. Sarah believes the future is already written. The machines believe humans will destroy themselves. But by the end, the movie argues something different. There is no fate but what we make. That's what separates Terminator 2 from a lot of action movies. The spectacle gets you into the theater. The characters make you remember it. More than 30 years later, Terminator 2 is still one of the greatest sequels ever made. And I'd argue it's still one of the greatest action movies, period. My rating, 9.5 out of 10. But now I want to hear from you. Which movie is better, The Terminator or Terminator 2? Drop your pick in the comments. And if you enjoyed the review, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hasta la vista, baby.